Thank you for tuning in to Ungentrified with Kent Johnson. Ungentrified takes an unfiltered view on pop culture, music, television and film, politics, current events, and topics central to the worldwide Black community. Ungentrified is a safe audio space for celebrating Black culture in its purest form. Thank you for joining another episode of Ungentrified with Kent Johnson. Of course, this is your boy, your host, Kent Johnson, and I can't wait to talk about today's subject. It is an incredible story. Look, it's so incredible that we're not even going to do current events today. We're going to go right into the guest and his situation. But before we do that, one thing that I ask everybody that comes on the show is what's on their radar at the moment. So it's whatever Netflix binge you're on, whatever book you're reading, what's your jam of the moment. What's on your radar right now?
What's on my radar? I just finished Gary Vaynerchuk's book, Crushing It, which was amazing. And it taught me a lot about different social media platforms and just, maximizing that. And I'm also reading this new book. It's not new, but I posted it on my Instagram. I think it's called The Subtle Way of Not Giving a Fuck.
Yes, I've been wanting to read that.
My God. You haven't read it?
I haven't read it yet.
Bro, this guy is so blunt. Like, I love any book when there's curse words in there. And he is just keeping it real, and he's creating these really interesting scenarios. And he has a chapter in there where he talks about we had this situation with one of his siblings, which happened, with his brother. And he was like, you can still love people, but you don't have to put up with their shit. And so
that is a word.
Yeah. And so I was just dealing with some family stuff, because I'm from Detroit and I love my family, but it's like when we get together, it's just so dramatic. And this book has just really helped me just realize that we just give power to so much bullshit. So, as a 45-year-old man, like, I'm just really just grateful to just be at the point in my life where I'm just like, I don't have time for the bullshit. You know what I mean?
Ain't no going back and forth with nobody.
No, I don't have to go. There has to be a point in your life where you just have to you're just tired and just like, look, what I do now is I surrender it to God, and then I say, what am I supposed to learn from this experience? That's what I do now.
And I'm mad at that. Yeah, a lot of people I know have been reading that book, and I've heard mixed reviews on it, but I was like, I definitely want to read it. So
I'm gonna tell you what I'm doing. So what I did was there's a website called, I think it's called scribe.com, and they have audio books and just regular books. So what I did was I downloaded the audio and the written book. So I let the author read the book.
Okay.
I'm highlighting it with my finger. Okay. While they're reading it, and it's fascinating because then you hear it from a different perspective, and I'm more focused because I'll have my headphones on, and I'm not as easily distracted. And it's a great process, and it works for me, and it helps me go back, later and just figure out, how I can apply it to my life. So I would try that.
Let's see. Any jam of the moment? What's your jam of the moment?
I don't have a jam of the moment, but I don't know if you're familiar with the artist Sia.
Yeah.
I love her. Like, she has this song, it's something Wings, and the chorus goes, I can do anything, I can do anything. And she keeps repeating it. And whenever I feel like I'm stuck, I'll put that song on, and then I'll just sit there and just, like they say, be still. and listen to it, and then I'll get up and I'm like, okay, no complaining, get that shit done. And that's like my song of the moment right now.
Yeah.
I can't think of the name of it. I'll look for it while, and we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, I was a fan of his first album, her very first jump. But after that, I never really checked. I think there was another album that I listened to, but I wasn't too into it. But the first album, I rocked that for a while.
Like, it's not like for me, like it's not like the full album. It'll be like, like certain songs that I'm like, okay. So the song is called Angel by the Wings.
Angel by the Wings.
That's like the gospel for me right now.
Oh, let's see what's on my radar. So books wise, I just finished up a book, but the book I am reading now is about Santerias and that whole religion. So I'm really interested in learning that side of our people's history. So that's the thing I've been on right now is learning about, the history behind it, how it's used, or how it was used and how it's used today, and just people's opinions on it. Because I think it's now becoming a little bit more prevalent in our community as far as people looking for alternative ways to connect to a higher being.
Right.
So they're going back to the ways that we used to. So I'm very interested in that. So that's what has been on kind of like my spiral right now, what I've been looking at. Jam wise, I've been just hitting iPod Shuffle. There's nothing new. Yeah. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna take that back. So there's this song by Amber Mark. I don't know if you're familiar with her. She's a newer artist. It's her featuring Dram. And it has a very like 90s kind of appeal, which is of course why it registers with me. But I heard it on like the random last week.
That's how I do on Shopify.
Yeah.
Like not Shopify, but Spotify. They they'll have like suggestions for Jairus,
right?
And then I like listening to them because I'll find new artists that I would normally wouldn't find, and then I'll add them to like my specific playlist. So I definitely need to check. So she's a brand new artist.
Yeah, she's fairly new. Okay. Like I think in the last 2 years, kind of new. But the song is "Put You On," but it's a jam. So yeah, I'm kind of mad because I'm like, man, this would have done far better had it come out like in April. Versus, I think it just came out like in the last couple of weeks.
So is it more of like one of that spring summer type songs?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So it was like the last little remnants of summer when I heard it. But that's
you said it's called "Put You On."
Yeah, "Put You On" by Amber Mark. Okay. So yeah, I would identify that as a jam of the moment for me.
Got it.
But yeah, that's it for me. But let's go ahead and get into why I brought you here.
Okay.
To chat with me. So
drums roll.
Yeah. So you and I a few days ago were both recipients of an award for being healthy images of manhood in the Black community. Shout out to Aaron Follins for bringing together.
Thank you, Aaron.
12 very dope men doing great things in their respective industries. But when you came up to accept the award, you shared a little bit of your story and your history. And when I heard it, I was floored. And I think when you sat down, I immediately turned to you.
Right. I was looking I was like, okay, can he stop looking at me? Like, because everybody was like, eyes were on me. Yeah. I mean, we were on, each individual, but it was something when I was standing there, I saw the compassion in everybody's eyes in that audience. And I was like, okay. Let me hear it, because I started to get nervous, but I was like, kind of did like a little woosah, and I was like, just keep saying it, and then you'll know when to cut it off,
Yeah. I when you said it, I was like, okay, I absolutely have to talk to him, even if it wasn't for the podcast. I just wanted to talk to you to just learn more about your story and your life. But yeah, I was like, oh, we have to talk. I got to talk to you before
you were very like, bro, you got to be on my show. I was like, okay.
Yeah, and one of the intents of the show is to normalize and give people all of these shades, tones, experiences of Blackness,
Mhm.
however that may fall. So your story being very unique, I wanted to share that with other people who may be going through something similar to what you went through,
Mhm.
who may have gone through it and are looking to hear someone else's perception on life.
Mhm.
I just wanted to get your story out there, and if
Oh,
I could
thank
be
you.
one of the people to
Thank you.
record it,
I
then
appreciate
I would be
that.
proud to do so.
Yeah, I think you're the third interview post surgery that I've done via as far as like a podcast.
Okay,
Yeah.
I am honored. All right, so you guys are probably wondering who I've been talking to for the last few minutes, and I'm going to go ahead and let that person introduce themselves. So go ahead and tell the people who you are.
I am the one, the only, Jarris Madison. I am the editor in chief of Obvious Magazine. I'm also a photographer, and I'm also a new clothing designer.
He's being very humble. He's also a man of the world, a traveler, and he has a wonderful life experience, and that's why we're here. So that's what we're going to talk about. And you kind of opened us up to the topic of today. So you had a surgery. What was the surgery for?
Ooh, so I was misdiagnosed by some doctors in LA where I live for 2 years, and I found out that I had a rare bone cancer that I had never heard of called chondrosarcoma, and I had to have my actually, most people when they see me, they just see the leg, but I actually had to have half of my right hip removed on down. So I'm cut very, very high.
Wow.
So
Is that a typical situation?
for this type of cancer, yes.
Okay.
Because it's not responsive to radiation or chemo, you have to get it removed. And how they have 1% of the billionaires, I'm 1% of the amputees in the world that have this cut.
Oh wow.
So my prosthetic is a non-traditional prosthetic where it actually wraps around my entire waist because I have to use my core to help me walk. So that's why I'm always in the gym getting these abs together to help me walk. And it was just shocking for me because I didn't know that until I was doing my research that I was considered the 1% because even now with me being more out in public, you don't see my type of amputee. You generally see maybe arm or what they call below the knee or above the knee, but not cut up as high as I am.
So you brought up one of the topics I want to address, which was misdiagnosis. And that's something that has been a topic recently a lot for our community, especially with Black women and pregnancy and motherhood.
Yeah.
They are either people refuse to hear or address their concerns medically, or just assume that it's not as concerning as they have put it on to be. And it's been shown that people have inclinations that we as Black people are superhuman.
Right.
So our perceptions of pain are different, and that hurts us in medical diagnosis because we're not getting the treatment that we should.
Well, when you break it down like that, it actually makes sense because I remember, I will never forget it was June 2014. And I remember I was going through excruciating pain. And I went to the doctor, and the doctor was like, "There's nothing else we can do for you." And I was like, "Excuse me?" Like, I'm literally walking with a cane, like I'm 80 years old. And I was like, "You cannot tell me this is not abnormal." And then that's when my mom had that dream. And she was like, "You need to come to Michigan, where I'm from, to get a second opinion." So that's when I went to Michigan, got on the plane that August. And I was just, just like any other person, I was confident, I was like, yeah, I'm coming to Michigan. I'll be around my family. Everything is going to be fine. And so I ended up having to get another MRI. And then the doctor said, well, we're going to do a surgery. Because when I went home, I was in so much pain that I was crying. And my mother was like, we're taking you to the ER immediately. She said, I had no idea it was that bad. And so she said, I'm going to cut out a chunk of it that's causing you pain. And then we're going to, evaluate it, and then we'll let you know what's up. Her assistant came in the next day. He had this really weird, energy. And he was like, Mr. Madison, this is not good. And I was like, well, what are you talking about? So they checked me out, and they made another appointment in for me to do a follow-up in 48 days to get the outcome from the tumor, part of the tumor they cut out. And to my surprise, they said, you have stage 2, going on stage 3, rare bone cancer called chondrosarcoma, and we're going to have to amputate your leg. And I was like, what? And I was like, you can't amputate my leg. Like, I travel all over the world. Like, are you crazy? Because I didn't have a reference point. You know how, when women deal with breast cancer, you can find another breast cancer, survivor. I didn't know any other amputees or, anything of that nature.
Especially if it was someone with your diagnosis who you said that's 1% of amputees. Yeah, you weren't coming across that person in your day to day.
No. And so originally when she told me she was going to amputate my leg, I said, no, you're not going to do it. And then I went home with my mom, and we came back the next day, and then I agreed to do it. And I said, okay, so where are you going to cut me? Because I went to Google, and I assumed that they were going to amputate my leg above the knee or below the knee. And she was like, oh no, you misunderstood me. She was like, I'm going to have to take your entire, right butt cheek off. And I was like, what? And I lost it, because she had showed me this 24-year-old guy who she did the same surgery on. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, that's not going to happen. And so my mom was like, well, how long do he have to make a decision? And she was like, October, November will be pushing it.
And what part of the year was this when you had that?
This was in August.
In August,
that was
okay.
The second
diagnosis.
That was the second opinion. And so I remember leaving Detroit and going back to LA, and I went to the beach, and I stood at the edge of the beach to let the water go on my feet. Mm-hmm. And I said to myself, this is going to be the last time that I feel this water go on both of my feet. I just knew it. And so I had another friend who was going through colon cancer. And he said, you need to come to New York and get that surgery done, because if you get that surgery in LA, you're going to probably be dead. And I was like, what? And so I got on a plane because a client had hired me to style her for press week. So I got on the plane, and I had ran out of pain medicine, and I was in that excruciating pain again. So I had asked a friend to go with me to the ER. And we were standing at the corner, and she was like, there's Memorial Sloan right there. And I was like, oh, I'm about to go in here, because I sent them an email 2 months ago. No one called me, and I went in there, and the guy was like, you can't just walk in here, dude. He said, it's a private hospital. And I was like, oh. And he said, here, call this 800 number. And the lady's like, tell me your name. And I gave her my name. She was like, oh my God, you did apply 2 months ago. It was a glitch in the system. Right.
A glitch in the system.
A glitch in the system. So long story short, it was on a Friday. She said, have the doctor who diagnosed you in Michigan send us your diagnosis, and on Monday. So at 8:59, because they didn't open up till 9. So 8:59, I called Michigan and was like, look, this doctor needs to see this, blah, blah, blah. They faxed it over immediately, thank God. And then the hospital called me that morning and said that the chief of surgery want to see you today.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, well, I thought it was a 30-day wait list, And she was like, no, you got to come in now. So went in, there was a team of doctors. There was a doctor there from Tokyo, and they said, well, we're starting this new program for chondrosarcoma patients to save their leg, and you're going to be the first candidate ever. So I started bawling again. And I was like, oh my God. So went through that. And because I was so stressed out from the second opinion, the tumor grew another 2 inches.
And this is in the span of 2 months.
Yeah. This was like, it was just like going crazy. And so they ended up coming back and said that because the tumor grew another 2 inches, it's now touching your other organs. And if we have to open you up and it's sticky, which means that it's affected, it's cancer has gotten, we're going to have to remove your half of your stomach, your lower intestine, part of your colon, and you're going to have to wear a colonoscopy bag for the rest of your life. So I'm sitting here like, I'm waiting on Ashton Kutcher to come out and say, like, you're being punked. And I could not believe it. And me and my mom got on Facebook, and I did a Facebook video. And I said, I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm going to lose my entire leg. And the video ended up going viral, like millions of views. And then all these people were like praying, and then you have the trolls and, you know, all of that. And that was the beginning of what was going to change my life forever.
Yeah. So in less than a year, you went from, because this is right around when you turned 40, right?
Exactly.
So, you know, you're having these pains in your leg, and, you know, your first doctor's kind of brushing you off.
Right.
You know, I'm assuming he's just like, oh, you know, it's just with age. These are things that happen to your body when you like those kind of brush offs that people give. But you know, something is different.
I knew it because I've always been like, I ran, you know, at night, you know, played basketball, you know, a little bit. And so I didn't understand where this was coming from because cancer outside of my mother, my mom's mother dying of ovarian cancer in the 80s. Cancer didn't.
It wasn't a thing for your family.
Mm-mm.
So you're getting that first diagnosis. You know something is wrong. You go to Detroit and you get this bomb kind of put into your life.
Right.
But you said that you were very. It only took you a day to make that first decision when they told you they were going to have to do an amputation. So what was that first 24 hours like after you had that put into your lap, that the doctor is telling you at this point, like, we have to take your leg from you? What does that process to yes look like?
Well, remember when I went online, I was looking at amputees who were cut below the knee. So I was basing it on that because I saw Nike athletes who are, you know, represented by Nike that were, you know, had, you know, the blades. That's what they call them, the blades. So I was like, oh, well, that's going to be me, you know, not knowing that I was going to, you know, have to get that cut. So that's why my decision was so immediate, because I was like, oh, I'm going to be just like them.
Right.
And boy, was I wrong.
So you were able to see at least ideas or theories on what your life would be
what
after
I
that.
assumed it would be.
Right.
Right.
So that was where your mindset was when you made that initial decision. And then you walk back in there and they tell you
She was like, no.
That is not the case.
No, that is not the case. And so when she told me that, I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. So when I finally made the decision to get the surgery in New York, it was the day before Thanksgiving. That was the day of the surgery. And I remember they came in and they came in with a Sharpie and they have to initial the leg. And I was like, why you have to do that? He said, we have to do that so they don't cut off the wrong leg.
Oh wow.
I never knew that. So I even have the picture. I still look at that picture and I remember like, wow, they just initiated my leg. So this is really
it's real.
happen.
Yeah.
And the doctor was like, "Do you have any requests?" And I said, "I have one request." And I said, "Can you please save my right butt cheek?" And he said, "How did you know to say that?" I said, "Because I saw another amputee who had the same cut as me, and he said because he had his butt cheek, it was able to, it allowed him to be able to walk with his prosthetic." And he said, "That's fascinating that you found that information." He said, "I will be able to save your butt cheek." And he was like, "No one has ever requested that." I said, "Look, I was researching everything. I was not playing around." And so he was able to save it. And even when I went to go get the prosthetic, they was like, "This is the best like stump for someone who has your cut, because it's a great stump for us to do a mold to make a custom prosthetic." So I'm glad that I researched that.
And it almost begs the question, was he going to do it if you didn't ask for it?
That's a very good question.
Right.
And I thought about that too. And I was like, what if I didn't ask him that? Because then that would have just left all of that like empty.
Right.
And, you know, I'm not a vain person, but I don't know if I would have been able to handle that. That would have just that would have like took me to a whole nother level mentally. So I'm glad that I was able to do my research all the way up to the wire and request that, and he agreed to do it.
How long of a surgery is that?
That surgery was 17 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
17 hours.
Yeah.
And how long were you in care at the hospital after surgery?
39 days.
39 days. That actually seems shorter than I would have expected.
Well, that's just in the hospital because, you know, it's expensive to be
in
there. So they try to get you out of there, you know. So I had to deal with that for 39 days, but you still have to do what they call cleanup surgery.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to go in because when they do that type of amputation, it has all of the gauze and stuff in there, and they have to go in there and pull that out and clean it up. And then I remember when I woke up from the surgery, I thought I died. I really thought I died because there was nobody in this room. And I remember looking around, and I was like, did I die? Is this what heaven looks like? It was so surreal. And then all of a sudden, this nurse comes in, and it was like, "Hey, Mr. Madison." And I was like, "Am I dead?" And she was like, "No, you're not dead. You're alive." And I was like, "Well, where's my mom?" And so they kept lying to me, telling me my mother was on her way because they couldn't say that she was out there because people go into shock and I would have panicked.
Oh, yeah.
So they kept saying, "Oh, she on her way." And I was like, "No, I flew her here." Like, because I knew my memory was coming back, and I was like, I flew my mom here. Like, my mom is not on her way. My mother would never leave me. And then I found out that because it was such a intense surgery, you can't have visitors in there because you can set up infections.
Okay. Yeah, because you're very exposed at that point.
Oh, yeah. Like, bro, when I woke up, I had a brace on my arm. I had 2 drains coming out the stump, after my penis, temporary colonoscopy bag, a thing going down my throat, thing up my nose, IV, and they put on my favorite hat just to keep me warm. And I could not believe that my body was just like fighting, like, gotta survive. And then 48 hours after the surgery, they told me I had to start doing rehab.
So
I was like, what?
Right, because I mean, you've emerged into this new life. You've wakened from surgery, and you're a new man. You are a new person. And then to hear, I mean, you expect change, but you don't expect it that quick.
No.
Because I'm assuming that 48 hours was a mix of, oh my God, this is going really quick. And then, oh my God, this is going super slow.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of roller coaster of emotions. How did you react to seeing a part of you missing for the first time?
That's a very good question. And I'm trying not to get emotional about it. I remember when so every morning, the chief of surgery and all the surgeons had to come in. The nurses weren't allowed to change the bandages, only the doctors when they do their rounds. And every time they came in for weeks, I could not look down because I could not fathom the fact that I lost a whole leg. I could not believe that was happening to me. So whenever they would come in, I would just turn my head and I would look up, or I'll put my headphones on. I just couldn't do it. And even when they would come in and I would have to do physical therapy, I just could not look down because what happens is, okay, so I lost my leg through surgery.
Mhm.
And then there are people who lose their leg through trauma.
Right.
So you see it. So my brain still to this day, that my leg is still there. So I still get these sensations of like
these phantom sensations.
Yeah, it's the worst. It is the worst.
So what does that feel like?
It's weird because there are times I'll forget that my leg is not there, and I'll get in my mind, I'm thinking my knee is itching, and I'll reach down there and it's not there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, and you brought up a very salient point. Like, if you've lost it through trauma, you have the
mental,
the mental
right.
connection to it.
Exactly.
You know, you saw it happen, or you may not have seen it happen, but you felt it.
Right.
It was very real to you in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't something that you had to volunteer to do.
No.
Or it may not have started off as something you had to volunteer to do. But in your case, like you said, it's something that you had preparation for in a
right.
sense. Like someone told you, hey, this is what you should do.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we think you need to do. And so you have to.
But even in that moment, you still it doesn't register to you that you're about to have a full amputation because
right.
you don't, most of us don't know what that feels like. So they were telling me everything. They told me, well, this is going to happen and you're going to have this and that. And it didn't matter.
Right.
Because until I got it done, then that became my reality.
So you started rehab 48 hours. What does rehab look like 48 hours after that?
When they came in there and they were like, Mr. Madison, you're going to have to start rehab because you can't just lay in the bed. And I was like, y'all just cut my leg off
right.
like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And they said, you have to get up and start doing breathing techniques because if you keep laying in that bed, your lungs are going to collapse and then you're going to die. So I was like, I already thought I was going to die from the surgery. Now you're telling me I might die again. And so basically what they did was they would come in there and they had this like crane like bar thing over the bed.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have to pull myself up and sit on the edge of the bed for 20 minutes. And I thought I was about to die. It was I had the strongest pain medicine known to man. And it didn't
matter.
No, I thought I was about to die. And I was like, okay, why is this happening to me? And I was just crying. Like, you know how like when they say women, when they're pregnant and they're like super sensitive, dude, I could be listening to the theme song, the Punky Brewster, and I would just bust out crying. And I think what was happening was because it was my humility was starting to kick in. And I realized in that moment, though you're going through this process and it's temporarily, you're alive.
Right.
You're alive to go through the pain. But you're going to come, some just kept telling me, you're going to come out of this so much better. Just keep fighting. And I didn't want to let my mom down. And I kept looking at my mother and I said, if I quit and all of this sacrifice she made for me, then I feel like I'm going to be letting her down. And so that's why I just kept fighting.
So tell us about your first year after the amputation. What did you learn about yourself in that first year?
Oh my God, man. So the first year, See, people think that I went from having the amputation and then I went into a prosthetic. No, I was a wheelchair user for months. And so um, there was the American Cancer Society. Thank you. Once I checked out of the hospital, I couldn't go back home. So they put me and my mom in the hospital for months, and they paid
this was in New York,
not in the hospital, in a hotel.
Okay,
in New York, and they put us in a hotel in Jersey. An extended stay, and they put us in there for months, and they paid the entire bill. We didn't have to pay anything, and so we had car service and all of that. So I had to be in a wheelchair, and I never thought how like prejudice and cold people are to wheelchair users, because we would like go places, people wouldn't open the door for us. Luckily, the extended stay that me and my mom was at, there was a movie theater that was literally right across the parking lot. There was a Starbucks. Me and my mom it was just she and I. We would go to Walmart and we would put like 10 grocery bags on the back of the wheelchair, and it really humbled me. And so eventually I went through the treatment, and then they were like, well, you still can't leave because we have to reverse the colonoscopy bag. So my contract ended with the American Cancer Society, and this church in New York, St. James, on the corner of 71st and Madison, had an apartment that they donate to Memorial Sloan. So the social worker for the hospital called them. They put me in this apartment, and they were like, you got approved. And I said, wait a minute, 71st and Madison. I said, wait a minute, that's the Upper East Side. That's one of the most expensive places in New York. And I remember we went in there, and I just started crying. And I was like, wow, y'all giving this whole apartment to me? So my mother ended up having to leave, and I had the condition of staying in the apartment. You couldn't stay in it by yourself. So I was like, who do I know want to stay in this apartment with me for free?
In the Upper East Side.
Yeah. Right. So I called one of my homegirls, and I said, hey, you want to stay in New York, in Manhattan for free? All you got to do is just be at this apartment. When she was like, what? So you ain't got to pay no rent, nothing. And so she stayed there with me, and she really, her name is Raven Roberts, and I thank her for, being there for me. And she helped me. She would push me because, Park Avenue was one block over and Central Park was there. So she would push me through Central Park and would sit there and just get some air. And then I was like, no, I'm going to buy some gloves. Let me do it myself. And then eventually I just started going down to 24-hour fitness, started working out. And there were people, I would go to the corner and they would think I was homeless because I had like this full beard like Bin Laden. And I didn't want to shave. My hair wasn't, cut. And people thought I was homeless. And then they would come out of these fancy restaurants and like almost like throwing their food at me. It was crazy. It was crazy.
So how long were you in New York after the surgery?
I was in New York. Once I checked out of the hotel, I didn't leave, almost a year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I would say maybe 7 months of that, I was in a wheelchair, just going around Manhattan. And that humbled me. That really, really humbled me. And I'm really grateful for that experience, because now when I see wheelchair users, I have I'm sympathetic to what they're going through because I've been there. Yeah.
So you mentioned your mother, you mentioned Raven. Was there someone that surprised you? Like, who surprised you the most during your transition? And it could be in a positive or a negative way, but who really shocked you?
Me?
You?
Yes, myself.
How did you shock yourself?
Because in the middle of and I spoke about it after, at the event that you and I were at, I was in a full-fledged relationship. And it just got, in the process of all that and everything happened so bad, it just got worse. And like he accused me of being selfish. I will never forget that.
Okay.
Bro.
He accused you of being
Yes,
selfish.
that I was being selfish and I wasn't adhering to his needs. And I remember it like it was yesterday because I was in the hotel with my mom. And I remember I had to change my bandage. And I was screaming at him in the phone. And unbeknownst to me, I forgot to put the bandage on. So I'm literally screaming at him. And because my blood pressure went up, like fluids was shooting out of the damn stump. Because I was like, how the hell are you telling me that I'm being selfish when I lost a whole fucking leg?
Right.
Are you kidding me? And that just angered me, you know. And then eventually he just called me over the phone and basically gave me a verbal Dear John letter. And I was hurt by that because and I'm not even trying to make him out to be a bad person. I'm just speaking my truth.
Mhm.
And I just couldn't believe that, like, you just ended it. And I remember it because it was in March. And I was going through it and my mom was like, I'm going to buy you a journal. You need to start journaling. Because she said, if I can give you my leg, baby, I would give you my leg. But why don't you start journaling? Because in that way you can say what the hell you want to say and be unapologetic about it. And then like it went from March, and then June I go on Instagram. He was already in a relationship with somebody else. And I was like, well, what the hell is going on? You know? And so I just got into my feelings like anybody else would get, and I was just angry and you know, and it's ironic that my mom was like, she saw it. My mom has this thing where she see things. I don't know if she's a prophet or whatever. And she told me that he was going to leave me. He told me that in the hospital. And I was like, nah, we've been through a lot. Like, we're going to get married. She was like, no, y'all ain't.
Yeah. And I would think that, I mean, it's definitely absolutely rough on a relationship.
Mhm.
And there are questions that both sides have to ask themselves
Exactly.
about, you know, what do I see for the future? What do I understand about what's going on now? Am I strong enough? And these,
Yeah.
like I said, these are questions that both people would be asking. So yeah, it's I can't even imagine what that feels like for anybody in that situation.
And I thought about that. You know, I was like, you know, what if I was in, you know, his shoes? You know, would I would have done that? In my heart, I say I wouldn't have, because like to see me visually at that time, I was only 130 pounds.
Oh wow. And what's your normal weight?
Like 195, 200. So I look crazy. I remember seeing the pictures. And my mom was saying that she thinks that it went through his mind like, you know, I'm young and I'm going to have to take care of him for the rest of my life. But in my mind, I was like, but we were going to get married. And, you know, through marriages, you know, through thick and thin, through, you know, rich or poor, through the good times, the bad time, whatever. And so, I mean, right now I'm at peace with it because, you know, the guy that he ended up being in a relationship with after me, they actually just got married.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I was in Miami recently doing a hotel review, and I noticed that he followed me on Instagram.
The husband or your
ex?
Okay.
So I was like, let me count to 10 backwards. What does this mean? And I was just compelled to send him a DM. And what I did was I went through his stories, and that's when I saw that he was getting married.
Oh, okay.
You know, 10 days prior to that post. And I immediately sent a DM and I said, I'm very happy for you. I said, I'm glad that you're happy. You know, this makes me smile. And do you know, in that instant, and this was literally like maybe a month and a half ago, it felt like my entire spirit, like it just surrendered. Like all of my angst and everything that I felt about that situation, it was gone like that. And I'm grateful that I went through that because I was like, I can't keep holding this on because then I'm preventing someone from coming into my life.
Right.
And I'm glad that I did that. And so we chit chat every now and then on Instagram, but that's the extent of that.
Was there something that you expected to change about your life that didn't change after your amputation?
I thought that people wouldn't hire me as a photographer. I wouldn't get jobs. I thought the magazine would fail and everything that I thought. And I'm not generally a negative person. It's just, I knew that my mobility wasn't like it used to be. And I was so wrong. Like I ended up getting more clients. I ended up getting, 2 agents. I actually travel more abroad now as an amputee
than you did prior to.
Yeah.
Because you're right. You work in a field that focuses heavily on aesthetic and looks and beauty. And, one would assume that your position or your magnitude in that industry would change because of, your new situation.
But you know what? It's not even the industry that I was afraid of. It's more of my dating life. That's where it becomes challenging because most people, even myself, I've never dated an amputee before.
Right.
And so I started getting in my head because it's not a pretty cut. It's just not. And just in this lifestyle, it's very vain. It's almost like the entertainment industry, best abs, best this, best that. And I just started getting in my head and my mom was like, you're smart, you're successful, got good credit.
These are all very important things.
Like who wouldn't want to be with you? She was like, if they can't deal with the fact you don't have a leg, like you don't need to be bothered with them in the first place. And so I had to, really get out of my head and just like my support system with like my friends and my colleagues and was like, you're a great guy. Like you're kind because you want to be kind, not just because you're trying to get something out of somebody. So I had to figure out why I kept attracting men and sometimes women, because my DMs sometimes be lit. I don't even put thirst trap pictures and stuff on Instagram. People just love me because I'm living my best life.
Right.
What you see on Instagram is me, and people are drawn to that.
Yeah, confidence is
sexy.
Yeah. So people, it doesn't matter what your situation is, as long as you're aware of who you are and comfortable enough in the skin that you have.
Right. I know I'm the shit.
Yeah. And people respond to that.
Yeah. Like I'm so grateful, man. Like there's sometimes I just cry. And not because I'm sad. I cry because I'm happy and I'm joyful. Because my life today didn't look like this 4 years ago. I didn't know what my life was going to look like. Because like I was saying earlier in the conversation, I didn't have a reference point.
Right.
So now that I'm friends with other amputees, well, via social media, but I don't have friends that I hang out with that are other amputees. So that becomes a challenge too, because I was always like, I'm 6'4". I'm the friend that always walked the fastest and like, let's go, let's go, let's go. And now it reversed. I'm the friend that walks the slowest. So I find myself doing a lot of things by myself because I feel like I'm in the way.
But then it's also a blessing in disguise too, because like you said, everything was very quick beforehand, but now it forces you to take in everything a little bit more because you have more time to experience.
One of the things that I kept holding on was the Jairus pre-surgery. He was the go-getter. He was, a little bit timid. He would, let things get to him a little bit. And I was holding on to that. And post-surgery, this Jairus now is unapologetic. He will tell you how he feel. And however you feel about it is how you feel about it. He's, more charitable. He's more grateful. Not that I wasn't grateful before, but I truly, every morning I get up, no lie, I always read my Bible verse of the day. Then I have a friend who texts me a Bible quote every single morning. And before I even go use the restroom or put my foot on the floor, that's what I do. And that kind of sets the tone for my day. And so I've finally, probably within the last 90 days, have completely let Jairus pre-surgery go. He's gone. He's dead. He's gone.
And it wasn't that long ago.
Mm-mm.
That was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow, you're actually coming up on your anniversary date.
Yeah. So every anniversary, I post a picture of me, laying in the bed that my mom took with me, in my drawers with the amputation. And then I show my current look. And then I always say, this is my anniversary, whatever. And every year it goes viral. People are like, what? That's you? And so I do that for me to keep a level of humility to let me know that you did it. And, we don't pat ourselves on the back a lot. A lot of times we look for people to, boost our ego or make us feel better. Not every day I'm like, Jairus, you doing it. Because you could just be sitting at home and not doing anything.
Right.
So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, during your acceptance speech, you said that you had no idea you'd gain so much by losing so much.
Bro, I lost my apartment. I ain't never lost my apartment. And at the time, luckily I had a really cool management at the apartment because I was there for 5 years. And I told them the situation that I had got behind in my rent because I couldn't work. Because
Right.
They kept giving me medicine. So I couldn't do anything. And I had gotten behind in my rent for maybe 2 months. And they were so cool. They was like, look, we're going to give you your security deposit back and we'll just write it off. We just want you to get better. We just, we don't know if you'll pay it and blah, 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 blah. And we won't even put it on your credit. So I was like, wow. So I ended up moving in, me and my ex, we ended up moving in with a friend. And I just felt like I wasn't even a man. But I didn't have no control over that. I mean, I look at it now, I didn't have control over it, but it was hard. And I had to go through that, losing the apartment, I lost friends, and I wasn't asking people for money. I just needed people to listen,
Right.
and to be there and be a ear for me. And people weren't there. And I was always the person, if you're hungry, or if you're going through financial, I was the go-to guy. And when I needed people to just talk to me,
Nobody would.
no, they wouldn't be there. Not a lot of people. I still have a great support system, but you have to go through that because it opens your eyes to things, and then you figure out what you need to keep in your life and what you need to purge.
What would you want people to take away from your experience?
Another good question. I would say, from my experience, just know that you are stronger than you think you are. Because when you're going through it, you don't feel like you are, but just keep fighting the fight and knowing that you will prevail. And as long as you tell yourself that, no matter if other people are instilling that into your mental, then you're going to be okay. Because as long as I know I'm going to be okay, and I say it to myself, then I don't have any complaints about that.
Jairus, thank you so much.
You're welcome
for spending this time with me. I'm glad that we were able to meet. I'm glad that I got to learn so much about you and your life experience. And I hope that our listeners walk away with a new understanding of life as someone who is an amputee, and so they can really understand what it means to go through that situation. Because it could happen to anyone, through trauma or through health. And I think that your visibility helps so many other people in ways that I'm sure people have told you, but in ways that you'll never know, but know that it is doing a great thing. Tell people where they can find out more about you and what you do.
Well, I'm Team IG, and you can follow me on Instagram at Jerris Mogul, which is JERRISMOGUL. And my website is actually taken down right now because I'm revamping it, but a lot of stuff you can see on obviousmag.com, or you can follow us on Obvious Mag on Facebook, or Obvious Mag on Instagram and Snapchat.
Right. And you need to get into Jerris's travels because he be all over the world doing his thing.
Yes, sir.
Jerris, again, thank you so much for coming on. You guys, thank you so much for listening. If you like what you hear, and I hope you did, please do me a small favor and then a big favor. Well, a small, medium, and a big favor. The small favor is subscribe if you haven't already done it. You can do that on iTunes, on your favorite listening platform. The middle favor, the medium-sized favor, is if you subscribed, go ahead and hit your boy with a review. 5 stars is nice. If you want to take it a step further, go ahead and write some kind words about your boy. That also helps immensely. And the third, the big favor, well, it's not too big, but tell people about the show. The way we expand the brand in the show, and get me in the faces and spaces of other people with really dope stories like Jerris is if other people know about it. So share the wealth. Again, you guys can find me on social media as well, on Instagram and Twitter at Kent W. Johnson. The podcast itself is also on Instagram and Twitter at ungentrifiedpod. You can listen to other episodes on the website, ungentrifiedpodcast.com. And of course, I'm always glad to have you guys with me. Jerris, I can't say enough how happy I am that I got on your schedule while you were in town and we were able to have this conversation.
I really appreciate the opportunity.
All right, you guys, we'll check you in the next episode. Peace.